start here. We're going to continue on. We're following straight on this time, right behind consecutive chapters, which I like that kind of. I think kind of opposite of myself, where you don't have to skip all over the place to get to your next lesson. But no, that's a style, and it's my preference. But I'm glad it's the way this morning. It makes it easier, I think, to follow along too. You don't have to fill in the gaps so much sometimes. You can just pick up where you left off last time. Okay, last week we saw Isaac and Jacob. We saw Rebecca and Isaac and Jacob in the dilemma they had got themselves into. Esau was kind of silent last week, but he was still in the picture too, of course. And we see that when we last finished the lesson, Abraham, Lord have mercy, Jesus, Isaac had blessed Jacob, and then Esau comes home and he gets a blessing too, but he did a prayer, blessing should I say, that was quite different from the blessing that he gave to his son Jacob, because he thought he was giving Jacob Esau's. He thought he was giving Esau's blessing, which was really Jacob. And if you look at what happened after that, they bring up the incident where Rebecca is concerned and expresses again her desire for Jacob to leave because two things. Well, the main reason was because she wanted to preserve the life of her son, Jacob. She went out to her uncle's house in Pandanaram. And then, but also, more than that, she had said to him that she wanted him to take a wife because remember how the consternation that they had, she and Isaac had over Esau's two wives that were Canaanite women, and which was totally against the covenant, and it was a source of great grief for both of them. But if you remember how it ended, and Jacob was on the run from his brother. You know, he had to be delivered, so he departed. But at any rate, we're going to go back. We can see how before Jacob actually, if you notice when you read Genesis, sometimes it gives you the whole story, then it goes back and fill in venues. What we're kind of doing here is right here. We're going back and filling in the venue because we saw the blessing that we saw specifically that how he gave both of them last time. But as we start out in today's lesson, we're going to see how he goes back, and Isaac does a real prayer. He does the prayer that he should have done from the beginning, and part of it because remember he had some reservations anyway. But then again, after it was done when it was done, and he had to accept the fact that remember because we did, and I want to embellish that, but we did last week was the verse where he trembled, and because according to most theologians and most Jewish scholars, that was actually Isaac's conversion. And I believe it was too, his real conversion. And when I say conversion, let me explain what I mean by that. I mean his spiritual rebirth. Because remember now, under the law, the first conversion was what? Circumcision. Exactly. That was a covenant sign. So, and you can see the same thing with Jacob, but also Jacob had also had the conversion, by being circumcised right today, but his spiritual conversion didn't occur until he was on the run. And so it's like his father. So I was thinking about this morning. So basically, their real spiritual enlightenment, where they accept the fact that God is really in charge, and that they need to work according to God's plan, is their conversion is really right on the foot of each other. Remember, this time Jacob's about 75, 76 according to scholars. And according to, and remember, Isaac is about 100, he was how many years older than his boys? Was it 30 or 40? 40? Okay, 40 plus. So Isaac was, what, about 100, I'd say roughly 130 at this point. And Jacob being 75, 76. So, because you remember, when Jacob left on the run, we'll read that part where he blessed me because he does the program again. And after a day's journey, which is approximately no more than 25, 30 miles, because remember now, if you remember from our other lesson, when Abraham said to Eliezer to get Isaac a wife. Remember, the journey was a 1,000-mile round trip. So between a 500-mile trek. So Jacob, in his first day of this trek, going about 25, 30 miles in the 500-mile journey, he sits down for the night for rest, afraid and weary and worn, as old folks would say, from all of his trickery. He's catching up with him, on the run for his life, departing in fear, knowing that Esau's probably thinking Esau's on his track, not knowing if he can rest with peace. That's when God, it's amazing how God, one of the things that we always say, in Reformed theology especially, is that God does the pursuing, not us. God is the one that pursues us, and we respond. You know, we like to say, well, I can't do the Lord, I'm so-and-so. I came out to the Lord. No, you did. You really didn't. The Lord pursued you, and you acquiesced, or you acknowledge the fact that He has. Sometimes, a lot of times, the Lord is chasing us, and we don't know who it is. Until He really hits us hard and square, we know who it is then we acknowledge who it is. So this is what's happening to Jacob. He acknowledges the fact that God is the God that He said He is. So anyway, I want us to read 3 passages of Scripture this morning. Our first passage will come from a very familiar passage, which is the 23rd Psalm. Psalm 23. And it reads, we don't know about memory, I'm sure, but we can read it. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Yea, or even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for You are with me. Your rod and Your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And why I read this here is because as I was reading this lesson, I'm thinking David wasn't the first. He wasn't the first person to acknowledge God was a shepherd. This is when Jacob realized too. Jacob realizes when God appears to him at Bethel, that He showed him all these unconditional promises, but He would do for him. He would be a shepherd. He would lead him in the valleys of the shadow of death. As He's going through all these things. But He also makes some promises that He's going to bring him back. And that's when Jacob realizes that God really is his shepherd. So David was the first to pen these words this way, of course. But I'm sure that if you look at the context and the essence here, he was Jacob's shepherd. Jacob realized that God was indeed his provider, his Jehovah-Jireh, his shepherd, and his leader, and also the one that would be true to His word to take him out and to bring him back. So let's look at another passage. I'm going to look at this. John, the Gospel of John, the first chapter. We're going to start at verse 45 and go through 51, I think it is. John 1. Let's start at 43. We'll go to the end of the chapter. We're me and Pastor Scripture, we've gone over many times. It says, the next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, follow me. Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, we have found him of whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. And Nathanael said to him, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Philip said to him, come and see. Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him and said of him, behold, I want you to catch what this says here. This one will bring you to. Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom there is no deceit. Nathanael said to him, how do you know me? Jesus answered him, before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you. Nathanael answered him, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the king of Israel. Jesus answered him, because I said to you, I saw you under the fig tree, do you believe? That's what he says here also. You will see greater things than these. And he said to him, truly, truly, I say to you, you shall see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. Okay? And why I brought you to this passage for two reasons. What? I looked at that part there. I want you to go back up here to the verse 47. Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him and said to him, behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom there is no deceit. Nathanael said to him, how do you know me? Okay. What does Jesus mean when he told Nathanael, behold, there's an Israelite in whom there is no deceit? What's Jesus referring to? Okay? Now, 10 minutes, same time now. Behold, an Israelite in whom there is no deceit. You got that idea?
Could be referring to Jacob.
Exactly. Remember now.
Because God changed the name to Israel, right?
Yes, he did. He says, then Nathan, because remember that Nathan had poo-pooed out there, but he didn't think about Nazareth. And I know now his town was much bigger, but still had a street light and 2 cameras compared to dusty roads. You know, but he's saying here, out of Nazareth, I don't think so. And Jesus said, Nathanael, you are truly an Israelite, a non-deceitful one, unlike your father Jacob. You don't have no deceit. You speaking clear, and your intent is very clear. What you mean? You say what you mean and mean what you say. Okay? And then he says to him, he said, how do you know me? How do you know me? And he says to him, basically, he said, Nathanael, when you were on the fig tree praying, you were going through your deliverance ritual, I saw you. I saw you. And I know who you were then. I know you have a relationship with God. I know you. You know me, though. And then when he talked to him, then he found what happened. What does the thing do? The thing acquiesces that you are the son of you are the one whom the prophet Moses and the prophet and Moses spoke about. You are, he goes 2 things. You are indeed the Son of God, and you are indeed the King of Israel. And Jesus says, you are amazed because I told you, I saw you when you're praying. You ain't seen nothing yet. Because if you remember now, bear in mind, before remember John had several disciples before Jesus had his disciples. And remember when John baptized Jesus, those disciples that had with John, who were the early disciples, they had seen the angel in the form of what? Of a dove, ascending and descending upon the Son of God. And God saying, this is whom? My, in whom I'm well pleased. Okay? All right. They hadn't seen that yet. But others had. And he's saying, you're spoken right. I am indeed the Son of God. I'm indeed the one whom Jacob's ladder referred to. You know, I am indeed that ladder. He says, but you're going to see even greater things. Because later on, you're going to find out. At the Mount of Transfiguration, the disciples are going to see the angels and others descending. At later other time, at the resurrection, before the resurrection, rather, when the judgment comes, they'll see all kinds of things, all kinds of celestial bodies, things in celestial bodies happen with Jesus. So anyway, Jesus is saying to him, unlike your father Jacob, I'm not a man of deceit. And indeed I am that ladder that you talk about, Jacob. I am that ladder. Okay, let's go back to 2 more passages and we'll go to the lesson. Let's go to, I think it's there, Ephesians 2:8. Ephesians 2:8. For by grace you have been saved through faith. And this is not your own doing, it is the gift of God. The grace and the faith. Many of us think it's only referring to the faith, to the grace. This is the faith and the grace. It is the gift of God. Okay? Now I'm going to go to 1 Timothy 2, 5, I believe it is. So that's the version. Yes. 1 Timothy 2, 5 says, for there is one God, and there is one mediator between God and men, the man, Christ Jesus. I won't need to press that because we need to press that. Okay? Now, let's go over to Genesis 28. You know, and I mentioned this before. Thank you very much. And I mentioned it again this morning. You know, we sing this song, Jacob's Ladder, and I love the song. I really do like the song. But I'm here to tell you this morning that we sing it with the wrong interpretation. This song is based. This song, Jacob's Ladder. It says, we're singing together.
We're singing this morning.
Every round goes higher, higher. Every round goes higher, higher. Every ring goes higher, higher. Soldiers of the cross. And there were some people had to go, well, we're not climbing Jacob's ladder. And not did Jacob. Jacob didn't climb the ladder.
The angels were.
But more than that, though. Remember now, in the Bible, we're referring to about the ladder. This is what we call. You remember in Tower? You remember in Genesis? Is it Genesis 9? When they built the Tower of Babel. Babel is really a pyramid. You know how you see pictures of the Washington and Crick model of the double helix, where those those things cross over and had those lines in it like steps.
The DNA.
The DNA code model. The ziggurat was built on a pyramidal style, but the ziggurat tend to have a point at one side that was straight up, but had a stair step at an angle that reaches the top. And the purpose of ziggurats were not for men to climb to God. The purpose of the ziggurat was for God to come to man. And when we get to the lesson what Jesus, what the Bible says, we get to that. The ziggurat really is more the better interpretation than ladder is really the stair step. In Hebrew, it's really a stair step, built that goes up to the heavens. So let's go back to the lesson.
Oh, is that when he said the gateway?
The gateway, the stairway to heaven.
Okay.
The stairway to heaven. Remember, and the stairway to heaven is not man going up to God, but God coming down to man. Remember, God always condescends out of grace. Even under the law, out of grace, God condescends. God comes down to pick us up. We cannot climb to God. For one thing, we have to never come to God until there is a conversion. But the point I'm making to you is that when Jacob had his dream and saw the story from heaven, it wasn't that Jacob climbed the ladder, reached up to God. Because you remember now, when Jacob went to sleep that night, Jacob had no notion about God and making restitution and repentance, because he left with a smug attitude, if you remember. He left all smug and on the run. And he was leaving because his mama said, go save your life and go find a good wife. You know. Now bear in mind now, he had received the blessing from his father Abraham, from his father Isaac. And the promise was for the land. He's leaving the very thing that he's been promised to be given, right? He's leaving the land. He has to leave the land in order to get the land. Because it's on his journey, on his sojourn and his return, that he experiences true conversion and true growth and coming to the knowledge of the fact that he needs to take hold of the promise and be who God has called him to be. So when Jacob lies down that night, he's not seeking God. And it's strange to me why out of all this time, and this is what we don't understand about God, and I know I don't understand about God. God so just out of the blue pops up on this boy, on this scandalous young man, old man, that's running from his brother, having done wrong, and God, out of the blue, right then and there, he did not went down to Bethel, not Bethel, Pandan Aram, or whatever you want to call it, whoever city he went to. He got him before he got there, because you remember now, Jacob's going to have a lot of experiences, and he's going to have another visit on his return home in 31 chapter, 31, 32. So when God comes out of the blue and appears to Jacob, I want you to see what God says to Jacob. Because if you remember what Jacob had told his father before he left, he says, when he asked the question, how did you find it so quickly, the venison, what did he tell him?
The Lord.
Oh,
provided.
Lord.
Are you sure what he said?
Something about the pad, putting up with
The Lord put.
it on the pad.
I want you to read this specifically. I'm just going to certain word you're leaving out.
The Lord your God.
The Lord, your God.
Your God.
Oh, not his, but his, yours.
Your God. Not my God.
Mm.
The Lord, your God. See, let's be he's lying. He's lying about that because at this point, Jacob didn't acknowledge God. He said, your God provided for me. He was telling the truth in a sense, but anyway, it wasn't that God prepared it for him. His trickery prepared it for him. But he said, the Lord, your God. But when Jacob encounters God, it's no longer the Lord, your God. It's different. Okay? So let's go to Genesis 28. So remember now, Rebecca has told Jacob he needs to get away. So Rebecca goes back to Isaac. It's not written here, but it's obvious. She goes back to Isaac and says, Isaac, he's got to leave. And remember, because when Isaac blesses him, he tells him about getting him out of there about the wives. Because Rebecca reminded him again about the wives and his son Esau had done. And they make this theme more solemn. So it says here, then Isaac called Jacob. This is after Esau mad. I'll get out now, and swore to kill his brother when he get a chance. He said, then Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and directed him. You must not, verse 15 said to him, you must not take a wife from the Canaanite women. See, and this shows you how he had not been the man he should have been all along. He should have directed the son he wanted to give the blessings to from the very beginning to not have. He should have insisted and enforced it that Esau not marry those Canaanite women. It's okay for Esau to do that, but now that the real blessings come and he's had this conversion, he said, "You must not take a wife from the Canaanite women. Arise," he says, "Arise, go to Padan Aram, the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take as your wife from there one of the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother." And he says, God Almighty, this God El Shaddai, bless you and make you fruit. See, here really goes on. He institutes again the blessing. He gets very specific this time. He says, may God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and multiply you, that you may become a company of people. May he give the blessings of Abraham. Here it says, this is the Abrahamic covenant. May he give to you the blessings of Abraham to you and to your offspring with you, that you may take possession of the land of your sojourning that God gave to Abraham. Thus Isaac sent Jacob away, and he went to Pandan Aram, to Laban the son of Bethuel, the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, Jacob and Esau's mother. So you see, Isaac has finally acquiesced to the fact that he needs to play his role. But he calls him in, and he really blesses him in the name of the covenant God Almighty, and the covenant God of Abraham, and remind him of the blessing that God had given Abraham, had given Abraham to Isaac. Now Isaac is giving it to Jacob. So Jacob is being sent off right with the promise of the blessing that should have been his from the start, that that Isaac had given to him under the disguise of the seed. But now he does it not being deceived. You see the difference? He fully knows at this point that this is Jacob, not someone pretending to be Jacob. I'm sorry. He fully knows that this is not Esau, and not someone pretending to be Esau, but this is Jacob, who rightfully belongs, the covenant belongs to. So he says, now Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him away to Padan Aram, to take a wife from there, and that he be blessed. I'm sorry, let's go again. Now Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him away to Padan Aram to take a wife from there, and that as he blessed him, he directed him. Because it says he directed him. See, because remember we read it earlier, it says he called him, he blessed him, and he directed him. And Esau takes note of this here. And he says, you must not take a wife from the Canaanite women. And that Jacob had obeyed his father and his mother and gone to Padan Aram. He says, Esau took note of the fact that it never comes up at this point. He's running because of the fear for his life. In Jacob's mind, he's running because his brother won't kill him. Because he says, preach for him when I get a chance. Maybe they'll die soon. He may die tomorrow. But when I get a chance, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to take you. And Esau sees this here. That Jacob obeys the command that his father and mother gave him to leave and to take a wife of his mother's family. And it says, and so in verse 8, so when Esau saw that the Canaanite woman did not please, it says, so when Esau saw that the Canaanite woman did not please Isaac his father, Esau went to Ishmael and took as his wife, besides the wife he had, Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebaioth. Did you see what Esau does? He says, Jacob is following the commands to do what mother-in-law said to do, not take a wife of the Canaanite. But this still shows how Esau is still not spiritually correct. You see what he does? He said, well, now that Esau, Esau knew long before now that he shouldn't take in a wife of the Canaanites. And then because they had to give his mother, because in the other chapter, he had to give his mother and father all kinds of grief and consternation. And so he said, well, and this is just like us trying to do God's work in our style and think God's gonna bless it. Wrong answer. He said, well, I took a wife of Ishmael, a wife from my half brother Ishmael's children. But you remember now, Ishmael was not the son of promise. And they were not of the godly seed. So he still ain't getting it right. And he's a half-hearted attempt to gain and to garner favor from mama, not from mama, but mostly from daddy. See, we are so eager to please people or other people as opposed to trying to please God to get God's blessing. And it says here, and Jacob left Beersheba, some people said Beersheba, and went toward Haran. And he came to a certain place and stayed there that night, because the sun had set. So so we see that Jacob has gotten the blessing the right way, in the name of his own name, Jacob, not in the name of Esau, or pretend to be Esau rather, but really Jacob. And he had gone a day's journey, and the sun went down, and he lay down to rest. And it says, and taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder, a stairway from heaven, set up on the earth. Set up on the earth. So what you see here is we have the vertical and the horizontal meeting. God coming down, the vertical coming down to the horizontal. The Father of heaven and earth. As we come to Jacob, tell him he's Father of all, heaven and earth. All of it. God comes down in a dream and set up on top of and he dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to the heavens. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, that's what it says. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said. Now that's not a question in people's mind. Some people say, at the top of the ladder, you got the cigarette, it's the stairway to heaven, where angels ascending. Where at the top of the ladder is God. At the very top of the ladder, it's in heaven. But if you read carefully here, that's not what it says. Because you'll see when it's explained later on, it says at Jacob's head. So God had come down the ladder and was at Jacob's head. And he saw God. And it says, and behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord. I am the Lord. Not the Lord of your fathers. Not the Lord of Isaac. But I am the Lord. God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Jacob, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give to you and your offspring. Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west, and to the east, to the north, and to the south. And in you, and your offspring, shall all the families of the earth be blessed. What this reference to? Remember we had this before? This phrase? Where did it come from?
Oh, God gave to Abraham.
God gave to Abraham. So the covenant continues. He says, I gave it to Isaac, Abraham. I gave it to Isaac, and now I'm giving to you to carry on. And when he came to him, he said, I am the Lord. Yes, I am the covenant God of Abraham and Isaac. But I ain't just the God of, you said earlier, you're God. But he didn't know, I am. Like I told Moses, I am. I am. Yahweh. And he says, and he would give him all these things. When God gives Isaac this covenant blessing, there are no conditions. Not a one. God always comes in his initial offering to man unconditionally. But we are so messed up and we're so fallen, we love to put handles of law on grace. And this is exactly what Jacob does right here. And he says, and behold, let's read what God says to Jacob here. He said, and behold, I am with you to keep you. It's 23rd Psalm right here. And behold, I am with you to keep you wherever you go. I don't care if you go through the valley of the shadow of death, the top of the mountain, wherever you go, Jacob, I'm with you. No conditions. I'm with you. He says, and I will go with you, and I will bring you back to this land. He says, I'm sending you away to the land I'm giving you. And he'll use it again. But I'm bringing you back. Because remember now, it goes back to the promise of Abraham. I'm bringing you back. For I would not leave you. Here he says, that's so comforting. I will not leave you. And that's what we need as all believers. You know what I'm saying? God would not leave us until I have done what I have promised, which is the end of time, which is never, never, because his word won't fail. He says, as I have promised you, no conditions, no holds barred. And Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, surely the Lord Yahweh is in this place, and I did not know it. I was what he said, and I did not know it. Bear in mind now, in this time in history, every nation thought they had their own God, and they were localized to their vicinity. And Jacob said, remember Jacob earlier? He was the Lord God of heaven and earth. It's all mine. In other words, God is just back where your papa was, mama was. God is everywhere you go, Jacob. He says, and I didn't know he was there. I thought I was leaving God back in mama's house. But God said, no. He said, I didn't know he was there. But he's there. That's what we call henotheism. The belief that every nation and every locality has its own God. But we serve a God who's the mediator between heaven and earth that owns every inch of it. All of it. Not just over there, over here, but it's all mine. And I'm everywhere you go. And he says, then, and he said, and Jacob, this is back, sorry, 17. And he was afraid and said, this is Jacob, he was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? You see what Jacob does? He says, he recognizes that there's something here, this place in the,
I think you skipped 16 though, didn't you? You just skipped 16? Did you read that?
I don't think I did.
No,
Oh.
you heard it.
Okay. Then let's read again. Then Jacob woke from his sleep, and he said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he said, and he was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? That's why I would say only God is awesome. We used to use the word for a lot of things, but the awesomeness, well, that's another story. This is none other than the house of God. And this is the gate of heaven. Jacob this is Jacob's conversion. This is Jacob's second conversion. He's been circumcised already. This is where he has his spiritual conversion, not just his physical conversion. But his spiritual conversion, he's awakened. But Jacob has a lot of growing to do. As Michael said, my favorite word, he has a whole heap of growing to do. And that's just like all of us. When we are born again, we don't mature even to our greatest height overnight, over a couple of years, sometimes over a couple of decades. Some of us, it takes a lifetime to reach a level of maturation that's really worthy to be called a child of God, from our perspective. Because a lot of us stumble and fumble over and over again without any regard to what really is going on. But and this is what Jacob does in his life. But this is Jacob's initial ascent. This is Jacob's initial conversion, spiritual conversion, where he recognizes that there is a God, and this is the God of the covenant promise that will be with me and will preserve me. But catch what Jacob says here now. And I was afraid. He was afraid. And he said, okay. And there is none other than, this is none other than the house of God. This is still in heaven. So early in the morning, Jacob took up the stone that he had put under his head and set it up as a pillar and poured oil on top of it, and he called the name of the place Bethel. So when Jacob sleeps at night, Jacob wakes up, he realizes that God has appeared to him, and that he has had we call it the stairway or the ladder from heaven come down to him, where the vertical meets the horizontal. And God has appeared to me and made these promises to him. And he said he gets up the next morning and he sets up a memorial to remember and to consecrate that place, that with those rocks he slept on. And he said, the house of God. Because remember now, the whole purpose of God is to see the whole time. God has always desired to dwell among his people. Always. And he said here, this is indeed the house of God. This is indeed the house of the El Shaddai. And it says, and he called them the place Bethel, but the name of it was called Luz, I think you pronounce that at first. Then Jacob made a vow saying, get what Jacob says now. And remember now, God has given Jacob this promise that he'll be a shepherd. He said, I will lead you wherever you go. I will go with you. I will protect you. But I will also bring you back. No matter what kind of danger you go through, where you go, I'm going to bring you back. I'm going to bring you back to the land of promise. And I'm going to give you, and I'm going to bless you in the process. Jacob, actually read what Jacob says. And Jacob said, and Jacob made a vow saying, if God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, I will give and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my father's house in peace. Then the Lord shall be my God. Now you remember now, whenever there's a covenant made by God, it's unconditional, and he sets the terms. He declares who he is for. He has the power and authority to do it in his name, by his essence, by his very being. And God has already done that for Jacob. Told him, I will be with you. I will bring you back. I'm going to give you this land. And Jacob, because of his faith still being weak, even at the point of conversion, he says, if then I will. If then I will. Jacob puts a condition on the fact that God had made this conditional promise, this non-conditional promise to Jacob. And Jacob was like to put conditions on it. Because of his lack of understanding. Because of his level of faith being so low at this point. He has no idea that God has already said that if he fails to keep his word, remember the way to go back to 15 Genesis. God told Abraham, I'm putting you to sleep because if you run the gauntlet, you're going to die. Because you won't keep it. But I'm going to run the gauntlet for you because I won't die. Because I will keep it. He has no idea that God is nowhere to be cut up. Is able to be cut up because God cannot fail. He will not fail. And he put these conditions on it. If you will do this for me, then I come back, I will give you blah, blah, blah. And that is so much like us. We love to put handles of the law on grace. And you cannot do it. We do it all the time in things we say we do, but you cannot do it. I'm telling you, you cannot do it. We cannot climb Jacob's ladder. And this is what Jacob's trying to do. Climb a ladder. I'm going up to God. You can't go up to God. God has already come down to you and has told you this is what I'm going to do. This is what it's going to be. I will bring you back. You may go through hell and high water, I'm going to bring you back. You may come back raggedy, I'm going to bring you back. You may come back off the blood, I'm going to bring you back. But see, we want to put conditions on it. He says, and you can say, I would. He says, I would. He would. If God would give him bread to eat, clothes to wear, blah 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 blah. But so that I come again to my father's house in peace. He said, then the Lord. Then he says, so that if then clause that if and then the Lord should be my God.
Be my God. Only then.
Only then. That's because his narrow view. That's because, and he is converted at this point. But he still has a narrow view. If so many of us get converted and think we know everything about God, because I'm full of fire for the Lord, walking on high air, and I know everything, Reverend Harris, I'm going to tell you what's wrong. And don't know nothing. That's what we feel. Jacob is so immature. And as you can see if we get to the lesson, he has so much growing to do. So much. And Jacob is a true picture of us, the church. We are constantly struggling against flesh and blood, what the word says in Ephesians, the world, the flesh, and the devil. We are so shackled by those things that we need to remember that our source of faith and our source of grace comes from God. And it says, and this stone which I have set up as a pillar shall be God's house. And of all that you give me, I will give a full tenth to you. Oh, he learned what that means. Because I'm tell you, when he gets to it, when Laban gets to it, his butt, he's gonna learn that God is faithful. He's gonna learn that God's gonna mature him. And I'm gonna tell you, even after he leaves his father-in-law's house, even to the point where remember when Joseph is down in Egypt, and Jacob still dies holding on to a little island that he thinks he can control. Because he is what he is. He is a rascal. He is a usurper. And he is Jacob. But God works and moves and changes Jacob's. And this is what God's going to do with Jacob here. He's going to change it. And he's going to make him faithful as time goes on. Time will wear you out, and time will change you. And this is what God does for him. But you remember now, and you'll see, I'm not sure if we did this or not. I thought it was going to be in this lesson this week, when I told you last week, about, remember he told his father he was Esau? Mm-hmm. He said, "What's your name?" He said, "Esau." Mm-hmm. I thought it was going to be in this first chapter, this chapter following here, at Bethel, that the angel wrestled with him, but I got ahead of myself. It's going to be in chapter 32, when the angel wrestles with him. Mm-hmm. And he's going to ask him the question. And Jacob asked the angel, "What is your name?" Because names are important. And the reason, and I'm just going to leave the answer if we'll get to it, because it's very important to understand that when you deal with God in the seat, God will make you get it right. Who are you? He had said who he said he was?
He said he was Esau.
He said Esau. But you're not Esau. Mm-hmm. You're Jacob. And you ain't even Jacob. I'm taking your name to Israel. You got a new name. A new person. And that's why he asked me, who you say you was? Are you sure you're not Jacob? Are you not Esau? Mom said, who is your boy? Who is you? And he has to declare who he really is. And God blesses him. But trust me, there are no conditions on God's blessings of salvation. Whenever God promises, there are no conditions. We put conditions on God all the time. And I tell you what we do all the time, and I'm making you, I hope I don't. We love to say, when praises go up, blessings come down. And that is true to a degree. But blessings come down in spite of your praises. You need to remember that. You are putting the handles of law on grace. Grace is freely given. God's going to bless you regardless of whether you praise him or not. Just by being here, you're being blessed. Just by breathing, you're being blessed. Amen. And there are people that don't even praise God, got all kinds of blessings. That's true. So stop putting that condition on God. You're putting the handles of law on grace, and you cannot do it. You can't shackle grace with law because they're separate. And that's why I love that song, Climbing Jacob's Ladder. I love that song. But it's so wrong. You are not climbing Jacob's ladder. The ladder has come down to you from heaven. And that's what I read in second chapter of 1 Timothy 5, that there's one mediator between man and God in heaven and earth, and that's man Christ Jesus. And Jesus is their stairway. Jesus is the stairway. And that's why Jesus took Nathaniel to, he said, Nathaniel, I was the stairway. Yeah. I was the stairway. There's Jacob. So the angels are sitting in there. And he said, and I admire you. Ain't no deceiving you, unlike your father, Jacob. I admire you for that. But know one thing, I am the stairway to heaven.